Hi guys, welcome to another video. Not a tactical one this time, but something I've been meaning to do for a while. Basically, I'm going to talk about what I'd like to see in the next Sisters of Battle Codex, whenever that may be. I think it's a while out, considering we only got one at the end of 2013, so it's been just over a year that we've had the current Codex, and honestly that was a stopgap. So either the Games Workshop could produce a new one and it's right around the corner, or I think more likely we're going to be a way off yet. I actually suspect 2016, but you know, I'm very happy to be wrong on that. So anyway, to start with, the current codex we have is actually very strong, but it's also very, very limited in that we only have a few choices. As far as I know, we're the only codex with just a single troop choice. Most of the sections only have two options in it. Heavy support is our biggest section with 3 choices. Not really counting HQ, just because that's a bit wacky anyway. So yeah, we're quite limited. So there's lots of room for growth, and for a new codex to really hit home and, you know, make the most of what they could do with a new release, what do I think it should do, and what kind of direction should it take? So I think the most important thing is that a new codex should keep the flavour of the army. So currently we're a very short range, heavy firepower army that can finish things off in assault pretty well. You know, we're resilient in close combat, we're very good at shooting, but we're also quite slow, and I think that kind of needs to be reflected in the way we play. So things should be made so they can still be aggressive, you know, they should still be very good at shooting, and ways to build it to compensate for other things. But while I think some options to mix it up a little bit would be good and have some different playstyles, I think the aggressive playstyle kind of suits the Sisters of Battle in terms of their fluff as well. So it'd be nice if they kind of kept that and they didn't like completely change the whole thing. So that's one thing I'd like to see. But the main thing I'm getting at is that the Holy Trinity as it exists, which is the Bolter, Flamer and Melter, it's a constant throughout the history of the Sisters of Battle army. And what I find strange is that we're not actually the best at it, even though we are limited in this way. So what I mean is there are other things around which are actually better than we should be with, like flamers and melters and blah blah blah. So what I'm talking about is things like flamestorm cannons. Sisters have no access to a flamestorm cannon, and it makes so much sense. I mean, you know, a strength 6 AP free flamer. Who loves flamers? It's the Sisters of Battle. So something like that. I certainly think it'd be more fitting to place there than on Blood Angels. I mean, if any Space Marines were going to get something like that, you'd think it would be Salamanders, but no, who knows. So yeah, flamestorm cannons, something with those on. Probably vehicles like immolators, maybe. Maybe a new kind of tank that could have them. Maybe we should just get Baal Predators. They would kind of fit, to be honest, with the flamer options, of course. Other things that you see quite a lot in these days, although they used to be a lot rarer, is blast template melters, things like that. So, you know, stuff like that we should get. We don't have anything that's torrent, which is amazing in an army that relies on flamers. There should definitely be some kind of torrent or some access to torrent which isn't the Promethean pipeline. This needs to be inherent in the army itself. The last thing with bolters is Avenger bolt cannons. Other than on the Avenger Strike Fighter, we don't have anything like that, which I find pretty hilarious. There should be something that, you know, the point I'm getting at is we have this Holy Trinity. We should be the best at it. If we're going to have it, we should be the very best. If we're only using bolters, flamers and melters, then we should be able to use those things better than anyone else. So not necessarily just better versions of those, but also we should be the best at using them. So torrent, heavy flamers, I mean, okay, we've got rending ones at the moment, but they should be better than that. We should have the twin-linked ones. We should have something similar to salamanders in that we get the reroll wounds and that kind of thing. So there's quite a lot they could do with it. Maybe they should make storm bolters like salvo for sisters or something like that, you know. Just something to make it a little bit more distinctive, to represent the fact that, you know, these are the guns they have, these are the only guns they need, and, you know, they treat them with holy reverence. They train with them their entire lives. Unlike a Space Marine who has to train in all forms of combat, sisters only really need to train in the 3 different weapons, so they should be able to use them better than anyone else. So yeah, I really think that would be a good way to take the theme and basically expand upon it. So the other things that you usually, well, at least you used to look forward to in 6, although maybe not so much with the more current codexes, is some kind of new units. Sisters certainly needs them. Currently they lack a flyer that isn't Forge World, so a flyer would be an obvious choice. Now personally I wouldn't be too bothered if we didn't have a flyer. Maybe just some kind of anti-air tank or something like that would be enough for me. Although a flyer would open up a lot more options in terms of maneuverability and shooting options and that kind of thing. So it'd be nice to see something. One of the ideas I thought was almost like a crop sprayer style flyer, only instead of spraying acid or whatever, or fertilizer or, you know, pesticides, that kind of thing, it could drop flame templates coming from the back. So I thought that would be kind of cool. You just fly over something and it like drops napalm on them, essentially. Wouldn't be needed, but, you know, it'd be fluffy and that kind of thing. Otherwise you could have some normal anti-air flies, but something suitably sistersy, so probably an angel or something like that. Monstrous creatures I don't think really fit with the whole Imperial thing. They shouldn't really be using monstrous creatures, and yeah, you know, the Dread Knight is an exception, mainly because they just wanted to use better rules for it. It's Matt Ward's faction, whatever. So, you know, I don't think it really fits. There's a lot of calls to turn the Penitent Engines into monstrous creatures. I don't think that's needed. I think they just need to look at the Walker rules a bit more closely and figure out a better niche for them. But, you know, so I don't think we need anything like that. I mean, if they did put something like that in, there is plenty of scope. Maybe, like, a larger Arco-Flagellant or something like that just goes berserk. Work a bit like a Chaos Swarm, I guess. Something I would really like to see, and I think would suit Sisters pretty well, is some kind of artillery unit. Because at the moment, we don't have anything in the army that can get above toughness 3, which is leaving a lot of windows of opportunity open. But artillery in particular is fitting with the Imperial playstyle, and of course you could use it as a platform for these new weapons, so you could put like a blast melter on there, or you could put on like a Torrent Flamestorm cannon, or you could put on a Avenger Bolt cannon or something like that and give it like particular rules, that kind of thing. I think that would be really nice, so I think that would be fitting. The last thing is stuff like bikes, something fast moving. While we are a very slow army at the moment, it certainly wouldn't hurt to put some bikes in, especially as a fast attack choice. Alternatively, they could put in some kind of spears or something, but then we are encroaching on other armies, and I don't think skimmers fit Sisters of Battle too well, especially fast skimmers at least. So I think bikes would be more fitting, something like that. It'd be nice to see. It'd be a good way of getting up quickly and stuff, and a few more options, a bit more toughness, but I don't think it's as needed as some of the other things, so there you go. The thing I would really like to see is a few more HQ choices that you can actually customise, because currently we have one, which is the Canoness, and if you want to customise anything else, that's it. So maybe some other options, either like a priesty type thing, or just another rank that isn't Canoness, maybe a cheaper version or something like that, that you can build for a more shooty focused unit instead of the close combat one that the Canoness is. It'd be nice to see Kirinov back. I'm not sure where he went, and the Confessors disappeared too. Something like that. It's shame they took out characters, didn't really need that. Or I'd also like to see a named character canoness. It seems kind of strange that there isn't any kind of special canoness in there. Maybe she could be shooty focused, or just have some special rules that buff your army, although I don't think that's particularly needed. I'd like to see one that actually focuses on the character themselves, other than Celestine, of course. So, a few options there, to be honest. The other thing they really need is updates to particular units. So, again, Canoness. Currently, a Canoness is way too expensive. Considering she is the same point as a Librarian, and a Librarian has a Space Marine stat line, and then, of course, once you start putting on the upgrades to her to actually make her survive, then she gets ridiculously expensive. So I think, basically, while the base Canoness isn't too bad on her own, I'd like to see her upgrades get a lot cheaper, especially the Invulnerable save, or she should just get that as default. And then she'd be priced competitively, I think. Likewise, the relics need changing, because either they're just not good enough to compete amongst themselves or with other codexes, but likewise, currently we can only take one per character, which is a bit ridiculous when all the other codexes can stack them up. So it would be really nice to be able to at least build out a Canoness if you put in the points for her, to build up one how you actually want to make her more survivable. It's not exactly unbalanced to do that, so I don't know why they restricted it in that way. I think it was just bad wording. I don't think it was intended. Other units, for example, like Celestians. The Celestians, in particular, have always been kind of in this middle ground where they're not really a shooty unit, but they're not a close combat unit either, and it just doesn't work on the platform it's on, like the toughness 3, initiative 3 models. It's just not good enough. So what they really need to focus on is basically giving them some kind of purpose. A few options they could do is either they could make them like Space Marine Stern Guard with special bolt ammo, which is something else sisters should get to, really. Bolt guns, I mean, come on. One idea I kind of thought about was maybe giving them something special with grenades, so like their active faith, they could all throw a grenade in the shooting phase instead of just one of them. That would be pretty useful before a charge, that kind of thing. Or otherwise they could just beef them up to be more survivable in assault and work as a kind of screen for your other units, and then they'd at least have a use on the battlefield. If they made them better and kept them the same points, I think they'd be quite competitive. As it is, they are currently a bit lacking. So yeah, there's not really any point. It's not the points cost that's their issue. It's the fact that there's no point in taking them when you can just take Battle Sisters and get more for your money, so to speak. So yeah, they need to change that up a bit. Speaking of which, I think points reductions here and there are kind of needed. For instance, the Rhino needs to be a bit cheaper. Currently, there is very little reason to take a Rhino when you could spend 20 points more and get an Immolator for the all-out firepower. Or you could spend another 15 points on top of that and get a Repressor from Forge World, which is miles better than the Rhino. The Rhino could do with being, if they want to make it more expensive than a normal Space Marine Rhino, they just need to make it a couple of points more. 5 points for an invulnerable save and Adamantium Will is not enough, especially when other factions can get them with It Will Not Die and that kind of thing for less points. So I think it's too expensive as it is. The main thing that I think needs dropping is the Battle Sisters themselves. They need to go down by about 1 point to be in line with what's going on. Currently, like, for an extra point, you could buy Chaos Space Marines, which, you know, just as shooty, more survivable in the assault and that kind of thing. You know, they've got Space Marine stat line. I think that alone shows that, you know, it's, if you could pay 1 point for a Battle Sisters unit, to give them +1 strength, +1 toughness, +1 weapon skill, +1 initiative, would you do it? Because I would. So it's just one of those things where I do think they're slightly too expensive at the moment. I mean, they're still really good, but you know, it's just a bit too much. There's a few instances of that elsewhere, like for instance, penitent engines either need their old rules back to bring them up in the killing power, or they need to be a bit more survivable, or they just need a slight points reduction again. I'd say about 70 points each would be getting to the point where they're where it'd be more likely you could take a single one. 65 points is probably the sweet spot where most people would probably put one in their list, just, you know, as a deterrent, that kind of thing. So yeah, they need dropping a little bit. The Exorcist is pretty much exactly where it wants to be in terms of points cost. No complaints there. Seraphim, again, pretty much exactly where they want to be. I think the Inferno pistols need to be dropped in points. I think they should basically cost the exact same amount as the hand flamers, because you know you got to get really close to use them, and they're not that scary when you got Dominions. Dominions again, about the right kind of price. If Battle Sisters drop, they could probably do with an extra drop in 1 point, but otherwise they're fine. Yeah, all the others are pretty much fine as they are, apart from the Canless, of course, and the Battle Sisters and the Rhinos, and a couple of other units, maybe ever so slightly, but they're okay as they are. So that's pretty much it, basically. I'd really like them to take the theme and run with it with the Holy Trinity. Will that happen? I doubt it, to be honest. I think one of the reasons Sisters don't get updated that much is because Games Workshop have no clue what to do with them. They don't want to make them female Space Marines, and I don't think any players of them want them to be female Space Marines. So, you know, you can't just give them all the same kind of tricks, but, you know, at the moment they feel a kind of niche that no other army does, and I kind of like it. And all they need to do is kind of recognise that, you know, there's these things already out there, they just need to take them and run with them. But there you go. That's pretty much it. So hopefully this video has been at least enjoyable. And I'll be back more with some actual tactical videos. So thanks for watching.